Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Well,
And here's the photo. What? Okay.
Is it the book?
No, it's it's a photo. It's super beautiful in terms of it's like a digital photo that's super well exposed, very pretty, like eye candy. It's of a cat sitting on what looks like a hamster cage.
Yes.
Looking at what looks like, I can't see the bird, but but right next to it is a bird cage with maybe a budgie,
Yes.
or no, it kind of looks like a myna bird, maybe. I don't know.
It's a conure. It's my bird.
Okay.
Conure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of threw in this picture of our pets, and our current pet situation. Well, we have a dog also who's not in the picture, but we just got this kitten. This cat is still a kitten, but very large, and will get even larger. It's a Siberian cat. I have a lot of allergies, so this is supposed to be a hypoallergenic cat. So it's been working out actually pretty good.
Okay.
And of course, the cat has been fascinated with the hamster and the bird, and so far those two are still alive, But it's like a question of who's going to win at some point,
Okay.
So yeah, I just kind of threw that in as, like I said, I didn't know what pictures do I include. I'm not really sure. Let's just throw it into the pets,
This will, believe it or not, your brain. Okay, so we have supercomputers in our heads. Like, let's think of it as supercomputers.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
We are going to find a connection in here. So, for example, what I see and how I respond is, in your house, you have crafted this. You're very cheeky. Like, you're very provocative. Right? Like, you have a dog, you have a cat, you have a hamster, and you have a bird.
Yes.
I don't know why she swallowed a fly. I guess she'll die. Like, it's just...
Yeah, that's kind of it. You got it. Everybody was always like, what? You have a cat and a bird? Or you have a cat and a hamster? What?
Okay, so let's talk about conflict, shall we?
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, look, I'm going to keep connecting it back to EMDR.
Sounds good.
So, in your household, you have a kind of a balance, right? A kind of homeostasis between. So, I have lots of pets in my house as well. So I know.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. So I at the moment I have I guess 3 dogs and 4 cats.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You saying wow is kind of funny to me. Okay, so what in you, like, some people go away from a crisis point, a friction point. Mm-hmm. You seem to, from the little I know you, seem to go towards into that crisis point.
Yes,
so
that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
So probably like most psychotherapists, I didn't have the most functional upbringing or whatever. It was kind of a dysfunctional childhood. But out of that, I became very comfortable in handling crisis and conflict. So like I did crisis work for a long time, worked in like prisons and hospitals and, things like that. So kind of didn't run anywhere away from it. But, obviously over time, I've kind of just segued into private practice and, my life is a lot more calmer in general. But I always prided myself on being able to handle sort of crisis moments and stay calm and whatnot. So I do kind of like the juxtaposition of things that people aren't expecting. Like that's why this book means a lot to me because, and I worked so hard on it for kind of a long time because nobody was really bringing these two things together, and I was like, why not yet? Why is it taking so long to really delve into sexual health in regards to EMDR, when all of us work so much with sexual abuse survivors. So, but back to like, the animals and the pets and all that. I mean, the household is tries not to be conflict laden. It's not like we're all fighting here trying to fight,
Of course.
But I'm definitely the one who, if I need to make a phone call, to a company or send an email or whatever, I'm like rolling my sleeves up, getting ready to battle, So I'm like, okay, I'm going to fight this fight, and, whatever that fight is, or, activism or, any of that stuff.
Okay. Are you a middle child, an older child?
I'm the youngest, actually. So I'm the youngest, and I sort of, grew into that hero role. I was the one who got good grades and did everything I was told so that I didn't make waves and I could just get out of there and go to college and all that. My older brother has like, I don't know, I think he had learning disorders and whatnot growing up, and ADHD, and was always like in trouble and stuff. So I was like, I'm not going to get in trouble, you know? So I avoided all that growing up, but later on, I came into my own of being assertive, you know?
Right. So going into sexual health, what would you say as a person who kind of went through those experiences to kind of land in that? In a sense, it's like, I feel like I'm almost talking to a firefighter, you know, or a first responder.
Exactly. That's how I felt definitely for the early part of my life up until maybe going into private practice. Which was about 11, 12, 13 years ago or so. I learned nothing about sexual health growing up, number one, you know, so I had no education. Like, I think there's 1 hour in 5th grade at some point, and the girls were taken to a different room and told about menstruation or something. And that's basically all I really remember. And nobody seemed to be interested in answering questions or had a positive attitude about answering questions. And then when I got into college, and many people that I knew reported, told me kind of like that they had been sexually assaulted or abused. I was kind of like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on? Kind of part of my language. I hope that's okay.
That's okay. Shooting it raw is a podcast for very young children, so don't worry about it.
It is?
No, of course not. No.
That's a good joke. You got me for a second.
Okay.
Anyway, so I just kind of saw this big problem, going on, and heard about it directly from so many people. And also just as a woman experienced, harassment and, sort of unwanted exchanges and things like that. So that became, a big part of my mission, not only kind of treating trauma, but preventing trauma. And then as time went on, wait a minute, there's this whole realm of sexual health and positive, sexuality and sex positive information and empowerment. So that really needs to be present too.
Yep.
So more recently, that's what I've been kind of adding into my practice in my life. And that's the outcome of this book. But I really had this very strong sense for a long time. Like I must be like a trauma therapist. Like It was basically like a calling that I had since like middle school almost, because I had friends talking about suicide, and I would talk to them late at night, trying to help them. And so it was there from an early on age of like this, I must help in some way, whatever way I can. And then in college, I did take some human sexuality classes, and I was like, this is amazing information. Oh my God, this is what I really want to pursue. But then I got really sidetracked by the whole trauma piece, because I just kept encountering so many people with trauma. I was like, this is too crazy. I have to work with this area for a while, So it was a long sidetrack getting back into sexual health.
Right. Monica, who was on here, who introduced me to this whole world of EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
I think her PhD maybe was in grieving and trauma. And so there's some interesting overlap and parallel. And also this notion of, is it that in order to get to a stage, because to talk about sexual health is almost, it's a state of acceptance, and like health you don't necessarily have to be sick to take care of your health. So it could be maintenance, it could be fulfillment. And so do you feel that in order to get to that place of thriving and satisfaction, you yourself had to kind of break through the sort of the wall of trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky in that I wasn't like severely traumatized, or it's not like I can, say, oh, I had this sexual assault or that abuse. Mine was more kind of more sexual harassment kind of things that I experienced just as a young woman growing up. Not so much physical or whatever, but I also experienced a lot of erotophobic, like erotophobia in my household. And also just in my culture in Texas, where like in the 80s, it was basically preppy people with very big blonde teased hair, like lots of hairspray and kind of jocks, versus everyone else. And they could sort of do what they wanted, but nobody really talked about it, and that kind of stuff. So, so I did have to really get through more or less like a lot of erotophobia. So that's a term that I learned in the last few years from another sex educator, which is basically the fear of anything kind of erotic or sexual or, anything like that. Even just thinking about it, or if you see some scenes in a movie, you might be uncomfortable or whatever. Yeah. I was able to do a lot of that work in college, though, because I did have these human sexuality classes, particularly by this amazing professor, Wendy Stock, who has a chapter in this book basically kind of summarizing, sex therapy, like here's a chapter on sex therapy for EMDR therapists who don't know anything about sex therapy,
Wow, nice.
So that she lives in California, and I contacted her and like, I remember you from college and you were amazing. Would you consider contributing this chapter? She's been in the field 40 years, so she was able to do that beautifully.
That's great.
But yeah, so thank goodness for these situations in college, which by the way, I went to Texas A&M, which is a highly conservative college.
Right.
But however, I managed to get into these liberal classes and find my little liberal progressive group.
Nice.
And then through that, help break free from all this sort of erotophobia and whatnot.
I love that. I think I need to sneeze. Hold on a second. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Sneezing it raw. 1 second. Okay. I love that as we're talking about these things, the image that I'm presented is like in my head, I'm connecting the words of EMDR, therapy, sexual health. And
yes, good.
In my eyes, and you framing the conversation of saying, well, your gaze and how your eyes move key into the sort of the mental state and therapeutic states and all this stuff. Okay, fine. But as we're talking, my eyes are bouncing around the room that I'm here and to the photo that you have, in which this kitten is transfixed by this bird in a cage while she's sitting on top of a hamster. And it's and the thing is, the colors are beautiful because like the walls are beautifully painted. Like it's like visually very pretty. It's kind of making my head do like somersaults.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we do a lot of that juxtaposition in EMDR. That's exactly sort of what's happening. I mean, I'm not trying to traumatize the hamster, the bird with that situation. And we since separated all that out, by the way. So the bird cage is somewhere where the cat can't really get to it or look at it that closely. The hamster's now at her cousin's because they lost their hamster. So we're like, why don't you borrow our hamster for a while? Because they were very attached to their hamster. So we have a lot less, danger.
What you're doing though now with me is you're making my head do somersaults. Like they're fine. Sure, they're living their pretty peaceful life, but I'm just like, okay, let's move on to the next photo.
Yeah, sure.
I am the king of ridiculous segues. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.